The waiter's fake smile couldn't hide his panic as Emily stood up at our anniversary dinner, holding what looked like divorce papers. "I want a divorce, Alex," she announced to the entire restaurant, her voice carrying that theatrical tone she used when she wanted maximum drama. I should have seen it coming. The way her friends had been giggling all evening, phones out, recording everything. The way Cassie kept smirking at me like she knew some delicious secret. The way Emily had insisted on this overpriced steakhouse where everyone could see us. "Okay," I said, taking a sip of my overpriced wine. "Hand me a pen." The silence that followed was beautiful. Pure crystalline silence that stretched across our table like spilled water. Emily's friends stopped giggling. The phone stopped recording. Even the waiter froze mid-step. "What?" Emily's voice cracked. "You want a divorce? I'm agreeing. Where do I sign?" "I'm Alex Marsh, by the way, 39 years old, IT manager at a mid-sized insurance company, and apparently too stupid to recognize when my wife of 12 years is playing some kind of sick joke. Or maybe I'm exactly smart enough." Emily's face went through about 6 different expressions in 2 seconds. Confusion, panic, forced laughter, more panic. "Alex, it's just what? A test? A prank?" I stood up, pulling out my wallet. "You know what, Emily? You're right. We should get divorced." I threw $200 on the table, enough to cover our meal and the show we just put on for the entire restaurant. "Thanks for finally being honest about what you want." The walk to the parking lot felt like the longest and shortest walk of my life. Behind me, I could hear Emily's heels clicking frantically on the pavement, her voice getting higher and more desperate. "Alex, wait! It was Cassie's idea. It was supposed to be funny." I stopped at my car, keys in hand. "Funny? You want to know what's funny? I've been thinking about divorce for 6 months. You just gave me the perfect excuse." That was a lie. I hadn't been thinking about divorce, but watching her face crumble, seeing the panic in her eyes as she realized her little game had backfired spectacularly, that felt better than any truth. "You can't be serious. Dead serious." I got in my car. "My lawyer's name is Patricia Williams. Have your lawyer call her." I drove away, leaving my wife of 12 years standing in a restaurant parking lot in her designer dress, surrounded by her equally shocked friends. In my rearview mirror, I watched Cassie trying to comfort her, probably explaining how this wasn't supposed to happen, how I was supposed to beg and plead and prove my love. Instead, I went home, poured myself a real drink, not the watered-down garbage they served at fancy restaurants, and called Patricia Williams' emergency line. "Alex, it's 11 p.m. Someone better be dead. My wife just asked for a divorce in front of 20 witnesses. How fast can we make this happen?" Patricia had been my lawyer since my dad died and left me his construction business, which I'd sold to pay for Emily's MBA. She knew Emily, knew our marriage, knew exactly how calculating my wife could be. "How fast do you want it to happen?" "Yesterday. I'll have papers ready by morning." What are we talking about here? Infidelity? Abandonment? Irreconcilable differences. She wants out. I'm giving her exactly what she asked for. The next morning, Emily was gone. Not gone, but gone to her sister's place across town, leaving behind a trail of angry text messages and voicemails that ranged from tearful apologies to furious accusations. I deleted them all without listening. Patricia's office smelled like leather and old coffee. She slid the divorce papers across her mahogany desk with the efficiency of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. "You sure about this, Alex? Marriage counseling might—" She stood up in a restaurant full of people and asked for a divorce. I'm just giving her what she wants. "And the house? Mine. I bought it before we got married, never added her name to the deed." That had been my dad's advice back when Emily and I were just dating. "Never put a girlfriend on the deed, son. Not until you're sure she's staying." I thought I was sure. Turns out Dad was right about that too. "Assets? Joint checking account has maybe 3,000 in it. She can have it. My retirement accounts are separate. The car's in my name. She's got her own car, her own job." I signed where Patricia pointed. She wanted independence. She's about to get more than she bargained for. The papers were served that afternoon. Emily called 17 times. I answered on the 18th call. "Alex, please, it was a stupid joke. Cassie said it would make you appreciate me more." It did. I appreciate that you're finally being honest about wanting out. "I don't want out, I want you." Funny way of showing it. That weekend, Emily's friends started their own little experiments. Cassie, the mastermind behind the divorce prank, decided to test her boyfriend Marcus by flirting with other guys at a bar. Marcus a decent guy who worked construction and treated Cassie like a queen, caught her making out with some random dude in the parking lot. He didn't make a scene, he just left. When Cassie got home at 2 a.m., her stuff was in boxes on the front porch and the locks were changed. Tara, Emily's college roommate who'd been married for 8 years, decided to try her own version. She told her husband she'd been thinking about other men, just to see how he'd react. He reacted by calling a lawyer. Jade thought it would be hilarious to pretend she was pregnant with someone else's baby. Her fiancé of 3 years didn't find it hilarious. He found it grounds for immediate termination of their relationship and their shared lease. One by one, Emily's little circle of enablers discovered that playing games with people's emotions has consequences, real consequences. The kind that don't disappear when you say, just kidding. I heard about all this through Dave, my best friend since high school, who worked at the same gym as Marcus. Dave had always thought Emily's friends were toxic, and he was enjoying their collective meltdown with the enthusiasm of someone watching a particularly satisfying action movie. It's like dominoes, he said, spotting me, while I bench pressed my frustration away. One stupid prank and their whole social circle imploded. Not my problem anymore. Emily's been asking around about you. Wants to know if you're dating anyone. Also, not my problem. But it was about to become my problem again, because Emily wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. She was the type to escalate. The first sign of escalation came on a Tuesday night. I was working late, trying to finish a server migration that should have been done months ago, when my phone rang. Unknown number. Alex, this is Detective Sarah Morrison with the city police. We need to talk to you about a domestic disturbance report. My blood went cold. What kind of report? Your wife, estranged wife, filed a report claiming you threatened her. Can you come down to the station? I could, and I did, with Patricia by my side and a folder full of documentation showing that I hadn't spoken to Emily in 2 weeks, except through lawyers. Detective Morrison was a tired-looking woman in her 40s who clearly dealt with this kind of nonsense on a regular basis. She listened to Emily's story, that I'd called her, threatened to hurt her, said I'd make her pay for embarrassing me. Then she listened to my story, backed up by phone records showing I'd blocked Emily's number, email records showing all communication went through Patricia, and security footage from my office showing I'd been in meetings during the time Emily claimed I'd called her. Mrs. Marsh, Detective Morrison said, her voice carefully neutral, filing false police reports is a crime. Emily's face went through that same series of expressions I'd seen at the restaurant. But I thought, you thought wrong. Mr. Marsh, you're free to go. Mrs. Marsh, consider this a warning. Outside the police station, Patricia shook her head. She's getting desperate. That's when people make mistakes. Emily's next mistake came in the form of a social media campaign. She posted our wedding photos with captions about how I'd abandoned her, how I'd refused to work on our marriage, how I'd thrown away 12 years over a silly joke. The comments were initially sympathetic until Cassie, apparently bitter about her own relationship imploding, posted the full video of the restaurant incident. Suddenly, Emily's narrative of the abandoned wife fell apart, replaced by dozens of comments calling her manipulative, crazy, and worse. Dave screenshotted the best ones and texted them to me. My favorite was from Emily's own cousin. Girl, you played yourself. But Emily's biggest mistake was going after my job. She called my boss, Richard, claiming I'd been stealing company equipment to sell online. She called HR, claiming I'd been engaging in inappropriate conduct toward female coworkers. She even called our biggest client, claiming I'd been embezzling from their account. Richard called me into his office on a Friday morning, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Alex, I need to ask you some questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. I was honest, brutally, completely honest. I told him about the divorce, about Emily's escalating behavior, about the false police report. I showed him my phone records, my bank statements, my work logs. I offered to take a polygraph test. Jesus, Alex, I'm sorry. I had to ask. I know. She's trying to destroy my life because her prank backfired. What do you need from me? Documentation? If this goes to court, I want proof that she tried to sabotage my career with false accusations. Richard not only gave me documentation, he gave me something better. He gave me Emily's employment records. Turns out she'd been using company resources to plan her little restaurant stunt, sending emails to her friends from her work computer, using the office printer to make fake divorce papers. Her boss, Michael Chen, was not amused when Richard called him. Emily was fired on Monday morning. That's when the real escalation began. I came home from work to find my front door standing open and Emily's car in my driveway. She was inside, in what used to be our bedroom, packing clothes into garbage bags. "What the heck are you doing?" She looked up, and I barely recognized her. Her hair was unwashed, her makeup smeared, her designer clothes wrinkled like she'd been sleeping in them. "Taking my things. You don't live here anymore. This is breaking and entering. It's my house too." "No, it's not. It never was. Your name was never on the deed, remember? You said it was too much paperwork." That had been Emily's choice. When we'd gotten married, I'd offered to add her name to the house. But she'd been more interested in keeping her options open. "What if we want to sell and buy something bigger?" she'd said. "This way it's easier." Now, 12 years later, her desire for flexibility was coming back to bite her. "You can't just throw me out." "I'm not throwing you out. You left. You went to your sister's, remember? You made that choice. Because you filed for divorce. Because you asked for one." We stood there in my bedroom, screaming at each other like children, and I realized this was exactly what she wanted. Drama. Conflict. Some kind of emotional response that proved I still cared. So I stopped screaming. "Emily, you need to leave, now, before I call the police." "You wouldn't." I pulled out my phone and dialed emergency. "Emergency? What's your emergency?" "I need police at 1247 Maple Street. My estranged wife has broken into my house and is refusing to leave." Emily's eyes went wide. She grabbed her garbage bags and ran for the door, but it was too late. I'd already given my address, already established that this was a break-in. The police arrived 15 minutes later to find Emily sitting in her car in my driveway, crying. They were the same two officers who'd responded to her false report about me threatening her. "Mrs. Marsh, we're going to need you to come with us." "For what?" "Breaking and entering, trespassing, violation of the restraining order Mr. Marsh filed yesterday." I hadn't filed a restraining order yesterday. I'd filed it that morning after finding my front door open. Patricia had fast-tracked it through a judge who was apparently getting tired of Emily's antics. Emily spent the night in jail. I spent it changing my locks and installing security cameras. The next morning, Dave called with news that made my coffee taste better than it had in months. "Dude, you need to see Emily's Facebook page. It's a complete meltdown." Emily had posted a 15-paragraph rant about how I'd destroyed her life over a joke, how I'd turned all her friends against her, how I was a vindictive monster who couldn't take a prank. The comments were brutal. Even her own mother had weighed in. "Honey, you brought this on yourself." But the best part was Cassie's response. Apparently, losing Marcus had given her some clarity about the situation. "Emily, you asked for a divorce as a joke. Alex gave you exactly what you asked for. This is your fault, not his. Stop trying to make yourself the victim." The comment had 63 likes and spawned a thread of people sharing their own stories about pranks that had backfired. Emily's restaurant stunt had apparently inspired a whole movement of people testing their relationships with fake breakups, fake pregnancies, fake affairs, and discovering that playing with people's emotions has real consequences. I screenshotted the whole thread and sent it to Patricia. Evidence of premeditation. Beautiful evidence of premeditation. This helps us establish that the divorce request was part of a pattern of manipulative behavior. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I'd expected. Emily's lawyer, a tired-looking man who clearly wished he'd never taken her case, tried to argue for alimony, for half the house, for emotional damages. Patricia destroyed him with documentation. Phone records showing Emily's harassment, police reports showing her false accusations and break-in, employment records showing she'd been fired for using company resources for personal drama, social media posts showing she'd orchestrated the whole thing as a test. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s who'd probably seen every kind of marital stupidity imaginable, was not impressed. "Mrs. Marsh, you initiated divorce proceedings as what you describe as a prank or test. Your husband took you at your word and filed for legal divorce. You then engaged in a pattern of harassment, false accusations, and criminal behavior. This court sees no grounds for alimony or property division." Emily's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Rodriguez cut him off. "Furthermore, Mrs. Marsh, your behavior following the filing suggests that you view marriage as a game to be manipulated rather than a commitment to be honored. Mr. Marsh is entitled to dissolve this marriage with prejudice. Divorce granted. No alimony. no property division. Emily got her car, her personal belongings, and a criminal record for breaking into my house. I walked out of that courthouse, feeling lighter than I had in years. But Emily wasn't done yet. The final escalation came 2 months later at Dave's birthday party. I'd been looking forward to it, a normal social gathering with normal people who didn't treat relationships like elaborate psychological experiments. I should have known Emily would show up. She arrived an hour into the party, dressed like she was going to a nightclub instead of a backyard barbecue. She'd lost weight, probably from stress, and her smile had a manic quality that made everyone uncomfortable. "Alex, I've been looking everywhere for you. Emily, you need to leave. It's a public party. Dave invited everyone." Dave appeared at my elbow, looking like he wanted to crawl under a rock. "Actually, Emily, I didn't invite you. You need to go. But we need to talk. Alex, I've figured it all out. I know how to fix everything." The party had gone quiet. 20 people standing around Dave's backyard, drinks in hand, watching my ex-wife have what was clearly a complete mental breakdown. "There's nothing to fix, Emily. We're divorced. It's over." "No, it's not. I talked to a lawyer, a real lawyer, and he said we can get remarried. We can start over. I'll be different. I promise." She reached for me, and I stepped back. "Emily, stop. I love you. I've always loved you. The divorce thing was stupid. I know that now. But we can fix it. I don't want to fix it." The words came out harder than I'd intended, cutting through the humid evening air like a knife. Emily's face crumpled, but I kept going. "I don't want to fix it because it wasn't broken, Emily. You were. You are. You turned our marriage into a game, our relationship into some kind of psychological experiment. You filed false police reports, tried to get me fired, broke into my house. You destroyed your own friendships because you convinced them to play the same sick games you were playing." I looked around the party at all these normal people living their normal lives without drama, without tests, without elaborate schemes to prove their worth. "I'm happy, Emily. For the first time in years, I'm actually happy. And you want to know why? Because I don't have to wonder what game you're playing anymore. I don't have to worry about what test you're going to spring on me next. I don't have to walk on eggshells, wondering if you're recording me or setting me up or planning some new way to manipulate me." Emily was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks in black streams. "But I love you." "No, you don't. You love the idea of winning. You love the drama. You love being the center of attention. But you don't love me, because if you loved me, you never would have asked for a divorce as a joke." I turned to leave, but Emily grabbed my arm. "Please, Alex, give me another chance." I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. "You had 12 years of chances, Emily. You used the last one at that restaurant." I pulled free and walked away, leaving Emily crying in Dave's backyard while 20 people pretended not to stare. Dave found me on his front porch 10 minutes later. "She's gone." Cassie came and got her. "Cassie?" "Yeah, apparently they're roommates now. Both single, both broke, both blaming everyone but themselves for how their lives turned out." I laughed, and it felt good. Poetic justice. "You okay?" I thought about it. Was I okay? My marriage was over, my wife was having a breakdown, and half the people I'd considered friends had revealed themselves to be shallow game players who treated relationships like entertainment. But I had my house back, my job was secure, my bank account was my own. I could make plans without wondering what Emily was scheming. I could have conversations without analyzing every word for hidden meanings. "Yeah," I said, "I'm okay." 6 months later, I heard through Dave that Emily and Cassie had moved to another state, chasing some get-rich-quick scheme that would probably blow up in their faces. Tara was in therapy, trying to rebuild her marriage. Jade was living with her parents, planning a wedding that would never happen. The divorce prank had become an urban legend in our social circle, a cautionary tale about the dangers of treating love like a game. I'd become something of a folk hero among my married male friends, the guy who'd called his wife's bluff and won. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a man who'd finally stopped playing a game he'd never agreed to play in the first place. Patricia called me on a Tuesday morning with news that made me laugh out loud. Emily's trying to get the divorce overturned, claims she was mentally incompetent when she asked for it. And, judge threw it out, said if she was mentally incompetent, she shouldn't have been making major life decisions. Told her lawyer to stop wasting the court's time. That night, I had dinner at the same restaurant where Emily had started this whole mess. I sat at the same table, ordered the same overpriced wine, and raised a toast to myself, to taking people at their word, I said to the empty chair across from me. The waiter, the same one who'd witnessed Emily's performance, smiled as he refilled my glass. Good to see you back, sir. How's married life? Over, I said, and I've never been happier. The waiter's fake smile couldn't hide his panic as Emily stood up at our anniversary dinner, holding what looked like divorce papers. The entire restaurant seemed to hold its breath as she cleared her throat with theatrical precision, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she wanted maximum drama and minimum subtlety. I want a divorce, Alex, she announced, her words echoing off the exposed brick walls of Chez Laurent, the overpriced steakhouse she'd insisted we visit for our 12th wedding anniversary. The irony wasn't lost on me, celebrating 12 years of marriage by ending it. I should have seen it coming from the moment we'd walked into this place. The way her friends had been giggling all evening like schoolgirls with a secret, phones out and recording everything with the dedication of war correspondents. The way Cassie kept smirking at me like she knew some delicious secret that would destroy my world. The way Emily had insisted on this particular restaurant, this particular table, this particular night when half our social circle happened to be dining here as well. Okay, I said, taking a deliberate sip of my $90 bottle of wine that tasted like it had been filtered through someone's gym socks. Hand me a pen. The silence that followed was absolutely beautiful. Pure crystalline silence that stretched across our table like spilled wine, staining everything it touched. Emily's friends stopped giggling. The phone stopped recording. Even the waiter froze mid-step, his silver tray balanced precariously in one hand as he tried to process what he'd just witnessed. What? Emily's voice cracked like thin ice under pressure. You want a divorce? I'm agreeing to your request. Where exactly do I sign these papers? I'm Alex Marsh, by the way. 39 years old, IT manager at Pinnacle Insurance Company, and apparently too stupid to recognize when my wife of 12 years is playing some kind of elaborate psychological game. Or maybe I'm exactly smart enough to recognize it and tired enough to call her bluff. Emily's face went through about 6 different expressions in the span of 2 seconds. Confusion melted into panic, which transformed into forced laughter, which immediately dissolved back into pure panic. Her carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the genuine terror in her eyes as she realized her little performance wasn't going according to script. Alex, it's just, this isn't, you're not supposed to, just what? A test, a prank? Some kind of elaborate social experiment to see how much humiliation I'll tolerate in public? I stood up slowly, pulling out my wallet with deliberate movements. You know what, Emily? You're absolutely right. We should get divorced. I threw $200 on the table, enough to cover our overpriced meals and tip the poor waiter who just witnessed the implosion of a 12-year marriage. Thanks for finally being honest about what you really want. The walk to the parking lot felt like the longest and shortest walk of my life. Behind me, I could hear Emily's designer heels clicking frantically on the asphalt, her voice getting higher and more desperate with each step. Alex, wait, please, just wait. It was Cassie's idea. It was supposed to be funny. You were supposed to fight for me. I stopped at my car, keys in hand, and turned to face the woman I'd married, loved, and apparently never really known at all. Funny? You want to know what's actually funny? I've been thinking about divorce for 6 months. You just gave me the perfect excuse to stop thinking and start acting. That was a complete lie. I hadn't been thinking about divorce at all. But watching her face crumble, seeing the genuine panic in her eyes as she realized her elaborate game had backfired spectacularly, that felt better than any truth I could have told. You can't be serious about this, Alex. We've been married for 12 years. Dead serious. My lawyer's name is Patricia Williams. Have your lawyer call her first thing Monday morning. I got in my car and rolled down the window. Oh, and Emily, next time you want to test someone's love, maybe don't do it in front of 20 witnesses with cameras. I drove away, leaving my wife of 12 years standing in a restaurant parking lot in her $300 designer dress, surrounded by her equally shocked friends who were probably already planning how to spin this disaster for their social media followers. In my rearview mirror, I watched Cassie trying to comfort Emily, probably explaining how this wasn't supposed to happen, how I was supposed to beg and plead and prove my undying devotion through some grand romantic gesture. Instead, I went home to our house. My house, technically, since Emily had never wanted her name on the deed, poured myself a real drink from the good whiskey I kept hidden from dinner parties, and called Patricia Williams' emergency line. Alex, it's 11:30 on a Friday night. Someone better be dead, dying, or filing for divorce. Option 3. My wife just asked for a divorce in front of 20 witnesses at Chez Laurent. How fast can we make this official? Patricia had been my lawyer since my father died and left me his small construction business, which I'd sold to help pay for Emily's MBA from Northwestern. She knew Emily, knew our marriage dynamics, and knew exactly how calculating and manipulative my wife could be when she wanted something. How fast do you want this to happen? Yesterday would be perfect. Tomorrow morning would be acceptable. I'll have papers drafted and ready for filing by 9 a.m. Monday. What are we talking about here? Infidelity, financial misconduct, abandonment? Irreconcilable differences. She wants out of this marriage, and I'm going to give her exactly what she asked for, exactly the way she asked for it. The next morning, Emily was gone. Not gone, but gone to her sister Karen's place across town, leaving behind a trail of increasingly frantic text messages and voicemails that ranged from tearful apologies to furious accusations to desperate bargaining attempts. I deleted them all without listening to more than the first few seconds. Patricia's office smelled like leather furniture and old coffee, with law books lining every wall and diplomas hanging in perfect rows behind her massive mahogany desk. She slid the divorce papers across the polished surface with the efficiency of someone who'd handled thousands of these cases. You absolutely sure about this, Alex? Marriage counseling might be worth considering. 12 years is a long time to throw away over one stupid incident. She stood up in a restaurant full of people and asked for a divorce as some kind of twisted relationship test. I'm just giving her exactly what she asked for, exactly the way she asked for it. And the house situation? Mine. I bought it 3 years before we got married, never added her name to the deed. She said it was too much paperwork, and what if we want to sell and buy something bigger someday? That had been Emily's choice, her desire to keep her options open. My father advised me never to put a girlfriend on the deed until I was absolutely certain she was planning to stay forever. I'd thought I was certain about Emily. Turns out my father's cynical wisdom was more accurate than my romantic optimism. Joint assets and debts? Joint checking account has maybe $3,000 in it. She can have every penny. My retirement accounts are separate. The car's in my name, her car's in her name. She's got her own career, her own income. I signed where Patricia pointed with her gold pen. She wanted independence and the freedom to test our relationship. She's about to get more independence than she ever bargained for. The papers were served at Emily's office that Monday afternoon by a professional process server, who later told Patricia that Emily had screamed loud enough to bring security running. She called me 17 times that evening. I answered on the 18th call. Alex, please, you have to listen to me. It was a stupid, thoughtless joke. Cassie said it would make you appreciate me more, make you fight for our relationship. It worked perfectly. I appreciate that you're finally being completely honest about wanting to end our marriage. I don't want to end our marriage. I want you to fight for me. I fought for you for 12 years, Emily. I fought for you when you wanted to quit your first job to find yourself. I fought for you when you decided you needed a master's degree that cost us $40,000. I fought for you when you wanted to redecorate the entire house because your friends thought our furniture was dated. I'm tired of fighting for someone who treats our relationship like a game show. It wasn't supposed to be a game. It was supposed to prove that you loved me. Asking for a divorce to prove someone loves you is like setting your house on fire to prove you have good insurance. Congratulations, Emily. You've proven that divorce papers work exactly like they're supposed to. That weekend, Emily's carefully curated circle of friends started conducting their own relationship experiments, apparently inspired by the spectacular success of Emily's restaurant performance. Cassie, the mastermind behind the divorce prank and Emily's closest friend since college, decided to test her boyfriend Marcus by flirting outrageously with other men at Riley's bar downtown. Marcus was a decent guy who worked construction, treated Cassie like a queen, and had been planning to propose on her birthday next month. He caught her making out with some random stranger in the parking lot behind the bar at 1:30 in the morning. He didn't make a scene. He didn't scream or throw punches or cause drama. He just quietly walked back to his truck and drove home. When Cassie finally stumbled back to their shared apartment at 3 a.m., expecting to find Marcus worried sick about her whereabouts, she found all her belongings packed neatly in boxes on the front porch and the locks changed. The note taped to the front door was brief and devastating. If you're looking for someone else, you found him. Don't contact me again. Marcus. Tara, Emily's college roommate, who'd been married to her high school sweetheart for 8 years, decided to try her own version of relationship testing. She told her husband Jim that she'd been thinking about other men, fantasizing about what her life would be like if she'd married someone more exciting, more adventurous, more spontaneous. Jim's response was to quietly call a divorce lawyer the next morning and have papers served by Thursday. 8 years of marriage, 2 kids, a mortgage, and a shared life destroyed because Tara wanted to see if she could make her husband jealous. Jade, the youngest member of Emily's friend group, thought it would be absolutely hilarious to pretend she was pregnant with another man's baby, just to see how her fiancé would react. Her fiancé of 3 years, who'd been saving money for their dream wedding, didn't find it hilarious at all. He found it grounds for immediate termination of their relationship, their shared lease, and their joint bank account. One by one, Emily's little circle of enablers and co-conspirators discovered that playing psychological games with people's emotions has real consequences. Permanent consequences. The kind that don't disappear when you laugh and say, "just kidding," or "it was just a test." I heard about all this carnage through Dave, my best friend since high school, who worked at the same gym as Marcus, and had a front row seat to the relationship apocalypse that Emily's divorce prank had unleashed on our social circle. "It's like watching dominoes fall," Dave said, spotting me while I bench pressed my frustration and anger into manageable chunks. "One stupid prank and their entire friend group has imploded. Marcus is devastated. Jim's talking about moving back to his hometown, and Jade's fiancé is telling everyone who'll listen about dodging a bullet. Not my problem anymore. Emily's been asking around about you, by the way. Wants to know if you're dating anyone, if you're planning to start dating, if you've joined any dating apps. She's basically stalking you through mutual acquaintances. Also not my problem anymore. But it was about to become my problem again because Emily wasn't the type of person to accept defeat gracefully or learn from her mistakes. She was the type to double down, escalate, and drag everyone around her into increasingly dramatic situations. The first sign of serious escalation came on a Tuesday evening. I was working late at the office, trying to finish a server migration project that should have been completed months ago, when my desk phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Alex Marsh, this is Detective Sarah Morrison with the Metro City Police Department. We need to speak with you about a domestic disturbance report that was filed this afternoon." My blood went cold. "What kind of domestic disturbance report?" Your estranged wife, Emily Marsh, filed a report claiming that you called her this morning and made specific threats against her personal safety. Can you come down to the station tonight so we can clear this up?" I could, and I did, with Patricia by my side and a manila folder full of documentation showing that I hadn't spoken directly to Emily in 3 weeks, except through legal representatives. Detective Morrison was a tired-looking woman in her mid-40s who clearly dealt with this exact type of domestic drama on a regular basis. She had the weary expression of someone who'd seen every variation of relationship dysfunction that humans could devise. She listened patiently to Emily's story, that I'd called her at work that morning, threatened to make her pay for embarrassing me at the restaurant, said I was going to destroy her life the same way she'd tried to destroy mine. Then she listened to my story, backed up by phone records, clearly showing that I'd blocked Emily's number 2 weeks ago, email records demonstrating that all communication between us went through Patricia's law office, and security footage from my office building showing that I'd been in back-to-back meetings during the exact time Emily claimed I'd called her. "Mrs. Marsh," Detective Morrison said, her voice carefully neutral but with an edge of warning. "Filing false police reports is a serious crime in this state. It's a misdemeanor that can result in fines, jail time, and a permanent criminal record." Emily's face went through that same rapid series of expressions I'd witnessed at the restaurant. Confusion, panic, forced innocence, more panic. "But I was sure maybe I misunderstood." "You misunderstood a direct threat against your safety? Maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was someone pretending to be him. Mrs. Marsh, consider this an official warning. If you file another false report, you will be arrested and charged. Mr. Marsh, you're free to go. I'm sorry for wasting your time." Outside the police station, Patricia shook her head with the disgust of someone who'd seen too many cases like this. She's getting desperate, and desperate people make increasingly stupid mistakes. This is actually good for us. It establishes a pattern of harassment and false accusations. Emily's next mistake came in the form of a comprehensive social media campaign designed to destroy my reputation and cast herself as the victim of a cruel, heartless husband who'd abandoned his loving wife over a harmless joke. She posted our wedding photos, with lengthy captions about how I'd thrown away 12 years of marriage over one moment of poor judgment, how I'd refused to even try counseling or communication, how I'd turned my back on true love because my ego was bruised. The comments were initially sympathetic, with friends and acquaintances expressing shock that I would give up so easily and offering Emily support during her difficult time. But then Cassie, apparently bitter about her own relationship imploding and looking for someone to blame, posted the complete video of the restaurant incident. Suddenly, Emily's carefully crafted narrative of the abandoned wife fell apart, replaced by dozens of comments calling her manipulative, crazy, attention-seeking, and worse. The video went viral in our social circle, shared and reshared, until everyone we knew had seen Emily stand up in that restaurant and asked for a divorce like she was ordering dessert. Dave screenshotted the best comments and texted them to me throughout the week. My personal favorite was from Emily's own cousin Jennifer. "Girl, you played yourself. This is what happens when you treat marriage like a game show." But Emily's biggest and most dangerous mistake was going after my career and professional reputation. She called my boss Richard at home on a Sunday morning, claiming that I'd been stealing company equipment to sell online for extra money. She called our HR director, claiming that I'd been engaging in inappropriate conduct toward female coworkers and creating a hostile work environment. She even called our biggest client, Meridian Financial, claiming that I'd been embezzling money from their account to pay for my expensive divorce lawyer. Richard called me into his office first thing Monday morning, looking like he'd rather be getting a root canal without anesthesia. "Alex, I need to ask you some very serious questions, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Your job may depend on your answers." I was honest. Brutally, completely, documentably honest. I told him about the divorce, about Emily's escalating pattern of harassment and false accusations, about the police report she'd filed and retracted. I showed him my phone records, my bank statements, my detailed work logs going back 6 months. I offered to take a polygraph test, submit to a financial audit, and provide character references from every client I'd worked with. "Jesus Christ, Alex, I'm sorry I had to put you through this interrogation. I believed you from the start, but I had to follow protocol when accusations this serious are made." I understand completely. She's systematically trying to destroy every aspect of my life because her relationship prank backfired. What do you need from me to protect yourself? Documentation. Official documentation of every false accusation she's made. If this escalates to court, I want ironclad proof that she's been conducting a campaign of harassment designed to destroy my career and reputation. Richard not only gave me comprehensive documentation, he gave me something even more valuable. He gave me Emily's employment records from her job at Hartwell Marketing. Apparently, she'd been using company resources to plan and coordinate her restaurant stunt, sending dozens of emails to her friends from her work computer, using the office printer to create fake divorce papers, and even using company time to research relationship tests and how to make your husband fight for you. Her boss, Michael Chen, was not amused when Richard called him to share this information. Emily was fired Tuesday morning for misuse of company resources, unprofessional conduct, and violation of the employee handbook's social media policy. That's when Emily's harassment campaign shifted into its final, most dangerous phase. I came home from work Wednesday evening to find my front door standing wide open and Emily's silver BMW parked in my driveway like she still lived there. She was inside the house, in what used to be our bedroom, frantically packing clothes and personal items into black garbage bags. "What the heck do you think you're doing in my house?" She looked up from the dresser drawer she was ransacking, and I barely recognized the woman I'd been married to for 12 years. Her hair was unwashed and pulled back in a messy ponytail. Her makeup was smeared like she'd been crying for hours, and her usually immaculate designer clothes were wrinkled like she'd been sleeping in them. Taking my things, my clothes, my jewelry, my personal belongings. "You don't live here anymore, Emily. You moved out. You went to stay with your sister. This is breaking and entering. It's my house too. I lived here for 9 years. No, it's not your house. It never was your house. Your name was never on the deed, remember? You said adding your name was too much paperwork, and what if we want to sell and buy something bigger someday? That had been Emily's choice when we'd gotten married. I'd offered multiple times to add her name to the property deed, but she'd always declined, wanting to keep her options open for some hypothetical future upgrade. Now, 12 years later, her desire for flexibility and independence was coming back to destroy her. You can't just throw me out like garbage. I'm not throwing you out. You left voluntarily. You moved in with Karen, remember? You made that choice when you decided our marriage was something you could gamble with. Because you filed for divorce. Because you asked for one in front of 20 people. We stood there in my bedroom, screaming at each other like children fighting over toys. And I suddenly realized this was exactly what Emily wanted. Drama, conflict, emotional chaos. Some kind of passionate response that proved I still cared enough to fight with her. So I stopped screaming. Emily, you need to leave my house immediately, right now, before I call the police and have you arrested for trespassing. You wouldn't dare call the police on me. I pulled out my phone and dialed emergency without hesitation. Emergency? What's your emergency? I need police officers at 1247 Maple Street immediately. My estranged wife has broken into my house and is refusing to leave the premises. Emily's eyes went wide with genuine shock. She grabbed her garbage bags and ran for the front door, but it was too late. I'd already given my address to the dispatcher, already established that this was a break-in by someone who didn't live here. The police arrived 20 minutes later to find Emily sitting in her car in my driveway, sobbing hysterically. They were the same two officers who'd responded to her false report about me threatening her, and they recognized both of us immediately. Mrs. Marsh, we're going to need you to step out of the vehicle and come with us. Come with you where? What for? Breaking and entering, criminal trespassing, violation of the restraining order that Mr. Marsh filed against you yesterday afternoon. I hadn't filed a restraining order yesterday afternoon. I'd filed it that morning, immediately after consulting with Patricia about Emily's escalating behavior. She'd fast-tracked it through a judge who was apparently getting tired of Emily's repeated appearances in his courtroom. Emily spent that night in the county jail. I spent it changing all my locks, installing a comprehensive security camera system, and documenting every item she'd taken or damaged during her break-in. The next morning, Dave called with news that made my coffee taste better than it had in months. Dude, you absolutely need to see Emily's Facebook page right now. It's a complete public meltdown. Emily had posted a rambling 15-paragraph manifesto about how I'd destroyed her entire life over a harmless joke, how I'd turned all her friends against her with lies and manipulation, how I was a vindictive monster who couldn't handle one moment of relationship testing. The comments section was absolutely brutal. Even her own mother had weighed in with devastating honesty. Honey, you brought this situation entirely on yourself. Alex was a good husband, and you threw him away for no reason. But the most damaging comment came from Cassie, who had apparently gained some clarity about the situation after losing Marcus and watching her entire friend group implode. Emily, you asked your husband for a divorce as a joke. Alex gave you exactly what you asked for. This whole disaster's your fault, not his. Stop trying to make yourself the victim of your own stupid decisions. The comment had 87 likes and spawned a massive thread of people sharing their own stories about relationship pranks and tests that had backfired spectacularly. Emily's restaurant stunt had apparently inspired a whole social media movement of people testing their relationships with fake breakups, fake pregnancies, fake affairs, and fake emergencies, only to discover that playing games with people's emotions has permanent, devastating consequences. I screenshotted the entire thread and emailed it to Patricia. Is this useful as evidence of premeditation and a pattern of manipulative behavior? This is absolutely beautiful evidence. It establishes that the divorce request was part of a deliberate, planned pattern of psychological manipulation, not a spontaneous mistake or moment of poor judgment. The divorce proceedings moved faster than I'd ever expected. Emily's lawyer, a tired-looking man named Robert Sterling, who clearly wished he'd never taken her case, tried desperately to argue for spousal support, for half the house value, for emotional damages caused by my abandonment. Patricia destroyed his arguments with comprehensive documentation. Phone records showing Emily's systematic harassment campaign, police reports detailing her false accusations and criminal break-in, employment records proving she'd been fired for using company resources to plan relationship manipulation, social media posts demonstrating that she'd orchestrated the entire situation as a calculated test of my devotion. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, named Judge Maria Rodriguez, who'd probably witnessed every conceivable form of marital stupidity during her career, was clearly not impressed with Emily's case. Mrs. Marsh, you initiated divorce proceedings as what you yourself describe as a prank or relationship test. Your husband took you at your word and filed for legal dissolution of your marriage. You then engaged in a documented pattern of harassment, false accusations, and criminal behavior designed to punish him for giving you exactly what you asked for. Emily's lawyer tried to object, but Judge Rodriguez cut him off with the authority of someone who had heard every excuse imaginable. Furthermore, Mrs. Marsh, your behavior following the filing suggests that you view marriage as a game to be manipulated rather than a legal and emotional commitment to be honored. This court sees no grounds whatsoever for spousal support or property division. Divorce granted with prejudice. No alimony, no property settlement, no shared assets. Emily got her car, her personal belongings, and a criminal record for breaking into my house. I walked out of that courthouse feeling lighter and more optimistic than I had felt in years. But Emily still wasn't finished with her campaign of escalation and revenge. The final confrontation came 3 months later at Dave's 38th birthday party. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks, a normal social gathering with normal, mentally healthy people who didn't treat relationships like elaborate psychological experiments or reality TV shows. I should have known that Emily would find a way to insert herself into the situation. She arrived 2 hours into the party, dressed like she was attending a nightclub instead of a backyard barbecue. She'd lost significant weight, probably from stress and poor eating habits, and her smile had a manic, desperate quality that made everyone at the party visibly uncomfortable. "Alex, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you." "Emily, you need to leave immediately. You weren't invited to this party." "It's a public party. Dave invited everyone from the old crowd." Dave appeared at my elbow, looking like he wanted to disappear into the ground. "Actually, Emily, I specifically didn't invite you. You need to leave my property right now." "But Alex and I need to talk. We need to work this out. I've figured everything out. I know exactly how to fix our relationship." The entire party had gone silent. 30 people standing around Dave's backyard with drinks in their hands, watching my ex-wife have what was clearly a complete mental breakdown in front of everyone we knew. "There's nothing to fix, Emily. We're divorced. Our relationship is over. It ended the night you asked for a divorce in that restaurant." "No, it's not over. It can't be over. I talked to a different lawyer, a better lawyer, and he said, we can get the divorce overturned. We can get remarried. We can start completely over. I'll be different this time, I promise." She reached for my arm, and I stepped back automatically. "Emily, stop this. You're embarrassing yourself. I love you. I've always loved you. The divorce thing was stupid and thoughtless. I know that now, but we can fix everything. We can go back to the way things were." "I don't want to go back to the way that things were." The words came out harder and more final than I'd intended, cutting through the humid summer evening air like a blade. Emily's face crumpled with genuine devastation. But I kept going because this needed to end once and for all. "I don't want to fix our relationship because it wasn't broken, Emily. You were broken. You are broken. You turned our marriage into a psychological experiment, our relationship into some kind of elaborate game show. You filed false police reports to try to get me arrested. You tried to destroy my career with lies and accusations. You broke into my house like a common criminal. You convinced your friends to destroy their own relationships by playing the same sick games you were playing with me." I looked around the party at all these normal, healthy people living their normal lives without constant drama, without relationship tests, without elaborate schemes to prove their worth to people who should already know it. I'm happy now, Emily. For the first time in years, I'm actually genuinely happy. And you want to know why? Because I don't have to wonder what game you're playing anymore. I don't have to worry about what test you're going to spring on me next. I don't have to walk on eggshells every day, wondering if you're recording me or setting me up or planning some new way to manipulate my emotions for your entertainment. Emily was crying now, black mascara running down her cheeks in thick streams that made her look like a horror movie character. "But I love you. I've always loved you." "No, you don't love me. You love the idea of winning. You love the drama and the attention and being the center of everyone's universe. You love the game more than you ever loved the person you were playing it with. But you don't love me, because if you actually loved me, you never would have asked for a divorce as a joke. You never would have turned our marriage into a test. You never would have tried to destroy my life when your stupid prank backfired. I turned to walk away, but Emily grabbed my arm with both hands, her fingernails digging into my skin. Please, Alex, please give me just one more chance. I'll do anything. I'll be anyone you want me to be. I looked down at her hands, gripping my arm, then back at her desperate, mascara-streaked face. You had 12 years of chances, Emily. You used the last one at Chez Laurent, when you stood up in front of 20 people and asked me for a divorce. That was your final chance, and you threw it away for a stupid game. I pulled free from her grip and walked away, leaving Emily crying hysterically in Dave's backyard, while 30 people pretended not to stare and tried to resume their normal conversations. Dave found me on his front porch 15 minutes later, holding 2 beers and shaking his head. She's gone. Cassie showed up and dragged her away, still crying. Cassie's still talking to her? Apparently they're roommates now. Both single, both unemployed, both completely broke, both blaming everyone except themselves for how their lives turned out. It's like a support group for people who destroyed their own relationships. I laughed, and it felt genuinely good. That's actually perfect poetic justice. You doing okay with all this? I thought about his question seriously. Was I okay? My 12-year marriage was over. My ex-wife was having a public mental breakdown, and half the people I'd considered friends had revealed themselves to be shallow game players who treated love like entertainment. But I had my house back, completely and legally mine. My job was secure, my reputation was intact, and my bank account belonged entirely to me. I could make plans for my future without wondering what Emily was scheming behind my back. I could have conversations without analyzing every word for hidden meanings or secret tests. I could live my life without constantly wondering when the next relationship quiz was coming. Yeah, I said, meaning it completely. I'm better than okay. I'm free. 6 months later, I heard through Dave's extensive gossip network that Emily and Cassie had moved to Phoenix, chasing some multi-level marketing scheme that would probably blow up in their faces within a year. Tara was in intensive marriage counseling, desperately trying to rebuild the relationship she'd nearly destroyed with her stupid jealousy test. Jade was living with her parents at age 28, planning a wedding that would never happen to a man who'd moved to another state to get away from her. The great divorce prank had become an urban legend in our social circle, a cautionary tale about the dangers of treating love like a game and relationships like entertainment. I'd become something of a folk hero among my married male friends, the guy who'd called his wife's bluff and won his freedom. I didn't feel like a hero. I felt like a man who'd finally stopped playing a game he'd never agreed to participate in. Patricia called me on a Tuesday morning 6 months after the divorce was finalized, with news that made me laugh out loud at my desk. Emily's trying to get the divorce overturned. She's claiming she was mentally incompetent when she filed the original request, and that you took advantage of her diminished capacity. And what did the judge say? Judge Rodriguez threw it out of court, said if Emily was mentally incompetent, she had no business making major life decisions like asking for divorce, and that her subsequent behavior suggested the divorce was the best thing that ever happened to you. She told Emily's new lawyer to stop wasting the court's time with frivolous appeals. That evening, I had dinner at Chez Laurent, the same overpriced restaurant where Emily had started this entire disaster. I sat at the same table where she'd stood up and asked for a divorce, ordered the same overpriced wine that had tasted terrible that night, and raised a quiet toast to myself. To taking people at their word, I said to the empty chair across from me. The waiter, the same young man who'd witnessed Emily's theatrical performance, smiled as he refilled my wine glass. Good to see you back, sir. How's married life treating you? It's over, I said, smiling back. And I've never been happier in my entire life.